Hi there, beautiful soul. Welcome back to Stories Always, where every tale is a journey of the heart. How have you been since our last story? Grab a cup of tea and settle in, because this one is going to move you. If you've ever wondered whether love can still surprise you in a world full of judgment, then don't just listen, feel this one. And hey, if this story stirs your heart in any way, please like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories that prove kindness still wins. Now, let's begin. The morning sun filtered through the narrow alleyways of a dusty neighborhood, casting golden patterns on the tiled walls of a modest home. Inside, Lina tugged her braid into place and checked the time again. 7:42 a.m. "You're going to be late," her younger brother mumbled through a yawn as he passed her in the hall. I know," Lina smiled, grabbing her worn-out canvas bag. "Don't eat just bread today, okay? There's a little soup left from last night." He just nodded, and she kissed his head before rushing out. Lina was 23, bright-eyed, warm-hearted, and poor by anyone's standards. She worked part-time at a local center that ran programs for kids and elderly residents. She wasn't paid much, barely enough to keep the lights on, but it gave her a sense of purpose. After her parents died when she was 19, Lina had become both mother and sister to her younger siblings. Life had left its marks on her, but none had dulled her spirit. Across town, in a tall gray building with mirrored windows and suited men entering and exiting like ants in formation, Jaden Ross stood in the lobby wearing a blue uniform and faded sneakers. His cap was pulled low. To most people, he was invisible, just another security guard's son who occasionally helped out near the center. "Hey, fake guard," one intern muttered under his breath as he walked past. Jaden didn't flinch. He was used to it. He took the elevator down to the basement where his black BMW was hidden in a private garage. Only one other person in the world knew who he really was, and that was the old man who had raised him after his mother died. The world thought Jaden was the son of the company's night guard, but in truth, he was the sole heir to the Ross industrial empire. And he was tired of people treating him like gold when they thought he was rich and like dirt when they thought he wasn't. It was 8:03 a.m. when Jaden arrived at the community center, quietly helping set up chairs for the senior reading circle. That's where Lina saw him again, just like every Wednesday and Friday. He was always early, always quiet, always unnoticed, except by her. "Hey, you missed a spot," Lina teased, nodding at a crooked chair. "The grandmas will form a union if you make them sit uneven." Jaden chuckled. It was a soft sound, rare, real. Noted, "Thank you, union representative." Lina grinned, then hesitated. She always wondered about him. He didn't speak much, but there was something in the way he helped the children pick up their toys or carried heavy boxes for the elderly. She had heard people whisper that he was the son of the building security guard, that he had no future, that he didn't even have a real job. But Lina didn't care. She saw him. Not the rumors, not the uniform. Him. That afternoon, after lunch, the staff gathered in the break room. There was a buzz in the air. "Did you hear? The CEO's heir is supposed to show up next month, the billionaire boy. Apparently he's going to announce a new program." "Betty's arrogant. They always are. I heard he lives overseas, doesn't even know the people here." Lina stayed silent, sipping her tea. Meanwhile, Jaden stood just outside the door, hearing every word. He blinked slowly. They had no idea he was already there, right under their noses. He didn't want the attention. He didn't want the flattery. He was looking for something he hadn't found in years. Honesty. A connection that wasn't based on money or legacy. And in this center, with this girl who smiled at him every morning as if he mattered, Jaden felt something he hadn't felt since his mother died. He felt seen. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Lina walked out of the center with her bag slung over her shoulder. She turned the corner and found Jaden leaning against the wall, looking up at the sky. She almost kept walking, but then something in his expression stopped her. "You okay?" she asked, stepping closer. Jaden looked at her. His eyes were a strange mix, dark, intense, lonely. I will be, he said after a pause. Lina didn't ask more. She just stood beside him in silence. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel awkward, the kind where hearts could speak without words. Jaden turned slightly. Why are you nice to me? Lina blinked. What? He shrugged. Most people ignore me or laugh behind my back, but you don't. Why? Lina looked at him for a long moment. Because I don't judge people by what they wear or what others say, that's all. He stared at her, and something shifted. Right then, Jaden knew this wasn't just another kind girl. She was rare. 1 in a million. Maybe 1 in a lifetime. And for the first time in years, he smiled. Not the polite smile he wore like a mask, but something real. Have you ever felt judged for who you think you are, not who you really are? Tell us in the comments, because sometimes the world only sees the label, not the soul behind it. It was the kind of day that felt too quiet, like the sky was holding its breath. The center buzzed as usual, children giggled, elders chatted, papers rustled, and shoes squeaked across the tiled floors. But for Lina, something felt different. She couldn't explain it, but it hovered around her like a shadow. She walked into the main room with a stack of donation forms when she heard a hushed voice say, "Can you believe they're setting her up with the guard's son?" She paused behind the half-open door. She could have had anyone, but she's so soft, always smiling like a fool. Desperate, more like it. Maybe she thinks it'll make her look good, marrying poor to feel noble. They laughed. Lina felt her face go cold. The papers in her hands trembled slightly. She turned away silently, walking down the hall, her thoughts spinning. She hadn't agreed to marry anyone. Where was this rumor coming from? 2 days earlier, Lina had helped an elderly woman who had fainted outside the market. Jaden had seen it happen and rushed over with a cold bottle of water. Together, they carried the woman to safety and stayed with her until help arrived. Afterward, Jaden had said quietly, "You'd make a great wife someday." Lina had laughed. "Well, let me know if you find a husband willing to take in 2 kids, a lot of debt, and no money for a wedding." Jaden had paused. Then, just under his breath, "Maybe I already have." Lina had thought it was a joke. Maybe it wasn't. That night, at home, Lina made dinner while her siblings played in the next room. She stirred the pot, her thoughts tangled. Could Jaden have meant it? Would he really want someone like her? She glanced down at her cracked nails and stained apron. She didn't even own nice shoes. Still, something about the way he looked at her made her heart ache, in a soft, painful, beautiful kind of way. The next morning, a hush fell over the center. People gathered by the bulletin board, whispering and pointing. Lina squeezed through and froze. A formal announcement had been posted. Ross Industrial proudly announces its new philanthropic partnership with the Community Center, led by none other than Jaden Ross, heir and CEO in training of the Ross Corporation. Jaden will visit the site this week to meet staff and participants. Lina's vision blurred. Jaden was the heir? Not a guard's son, not a struggling worker, a billionaire CEO. Her chest tightened, and she backed away slowly from the board. Her heart beat so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Later that afternoon, she found him near the storage shed behind the center, moving boxes like he always did. "Jaden," she said, her voice quiet but sharp, "is it true?" He turned. One look at her face, and the truth was out. He nodded slowly. "It's true." Lina stepped back like she'd been slapped. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't lie," he said carefully. "I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." Jaden's expression twisted. "I needed to know who'd see me. Not the money, not the name, just me." Lina swallowed, fighting the hurt that rose like fire in her throat. "So what was I? A test?" "No, never a test," Jaden said, his voice suddenly raw. "You were the only real thing in my life." Tears welled in Lina's eyes. But you let them laugh. Let them call me desperate. Let me stand there like a fool, thinking you were someone I could trust. He stepped closer. You can trust me. She shook her head. You don't get it. I wasn't kind to you because I thought you were rich. I was kind because you were real. Silence sat between them, heavy and heartbreaking. Jaden opened his mouth, then closed it, and Lina walked away. But what neither of them knew was that the fallout had only just begun, because within hours, a photo leaked online. Jaden in uniform, standing beside Lina, smiling. The internet roared. CEO caught dating poor community girl. Guard son turns out to be billionaire heir. Love story or manipulation? Who is Lina and why is she trending? Suddenly, Lina's quiet world exploded. Reporters called, strangers knocked, kids at the center whispered behind her back. Volunteers stopped talking when she entered the room. And through it all, Jaden said nothing. He vanished. Not a message, not a call, nothing. Lina sat on her bed 3 days later, scrolling through the hate comments online. Her hands trembled. Gold digger. She must have known. Of course she agreed to marry him. Who wouldn't for the money? She closed her eyes and whispered into the silence of her room, I didn't want anything. I just wanted him. A single tear slid down her cheek. Meanwhile, miles away, in a luxury boardroom, Jaden stood silent as his father spoke sternly. You need to handle this. You created this mess. Ross Industries doesn't marry into scandal. Jaden said nothing. His heart was still back there, in a dusty hallway where a kind girl had stood beside him before she ever knew who he was. And now, she thought he had abandoned her. Maybe she was right. But Jaden wasn't going to let it end like this. Not without fighting for her. Not without showing her he was the same man she had seen before the world put a price on his name. If you found out someone you cared about had hidden a huge part of their life, would you forgive them? Let us know in the comments, because sometimes the truth doesn't destroy love, it tests whether it's real. Lina didn't cry in front of her siblings. She cooked, she cleaned, she tucked them in, just like she always did. But the moment the door closed behind their shared room, her shoulders dropped and her body folded into the floor like it couldn't carry itself anymore. Jaden hadn't reached out, not a word in 4 days. Maybe it was a game to him. Maybe I'd been too naive, too hopeful. Maybe they were all right about her. The worst part? She still missed him. Across the city, in a condo wrapped in glass and silence, Jaden stood in front of his mirror wearing a navy blue suit tailored to his family's brand. His hair was perfect, his watch could pay a year's rent. His father had arranged a press interview to fix the narrative. The spokesperson handed him a script. Say it wasn't serious, that she was a friend from your volunteer work, that you support her dreams, but there's no romantic link. Jaden stared at the card. His father spoke without looking at him. You think love keeps a company afloat? No, reputation does, and you're lucky she doesn't seem like the type to talk to the media. Jaden tightened his grip until the card bent. They were wrong about her. She didn't use him. She loved him before the truth. And now she thought he'd turned his back on her, just like the world always had. Later that day, Jaden canceled the interview. I'm not lying, he said simply. The PR manager gaped. Your father can fire me, but I'm not going to throw her under the bus just to make this easier on myself. Meanwhile, at the center, things had changed. Lina still came every day, but people looked at her differently now. Volunteers whispered. Even some of the kids had heard the gossip. I heard someone murmur, I knew she was too good to be true. She kept her head down. She focused on wiping tables, folding clothes, organizing shelves. But her hands shook sometimes, especially when she passed the supply closet, where Jaden once fixed the broken broom handle with duct tape and said, now it's stronger at the break. She smiled bitterly. So I was, or so I thought. Jaden showed up 3 days later. Not in a suit, not in some sleek black car, just him. Jeans, a hoodie, and flowers he picked from a sidewalk fender. But Lina didn't want to see him. She was folding towels when she noticed him at the edge of the room. He stepped forward. "Can we talk?" She didn't look at him. "There's nothing left to say." "There is. I owe you everything. An explanation, an apology, 100 things." "I trusted you," she whispered, her hands frozen over the towel in her lap. "You saw me, and I thought maybe you chose me." "I did choose you." "No, you chose silence." Jaden's jaw clenched. "I was trying to protect you." She finally looked at him, eyes burning. "Then where were you when they called me names? When people knocked on our door, asking what I was wearing, when I caught you, like I was some kind of trap?" Jaden stepped back, like her words had slapped him. "I thought if I gave it time, it would blow over," he said weakly. She laughed, a hollow, tired sound. "You don't get to disappear and then expect things to stay the same." "I know," he said, voice low. "But I didn't disappear because I stopped caring. I disappeared because I didn't know how to fight that world and still keep you safe." Silence. Then Lina spoke, and her voice trembled. "If you don't know how to fight for the things that matter, then maybe you never really wanted them in the first place." Jaden opened his mouth, but Lina had already turned her back. He didn't come back the next day, or the next, and Lina hated herself for checking the door every 5 minutes, because she shouldn't want him to return, not after everything. But her heart didn't know how to stop wanting someone who had once held it so gently. Across the city, Jaden stood in his father's office, eyes hard, voice steady. "I'm stepping back from the company." His father looked up sharply. "You're what?" "You said reputation matters. Well, mine's already tarnished. Might as well go do something that matters." His father narrowed his eyes. "So this is about her. This is about me, about who I want to be when no one's looking, and she's the only person who ever made me like that version of myself." He walked out before his father could answer, because Jaden had made his choice. He was going to rebuild what he broke if she'd let him. But Lina wasn't waiting. She had started applying to out-of-town social programs, places where no one knew her face, her story, or the lies others had painted her with. Maybe it was time to go. Maybe love wasn't enough when truth was so fragile. Have you ever walked away from someone, not because you stopped loving them, but because they stopped fighting for you? Share your story below. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone. Lina had packed the last of her things into a second-hand duffel bag. A job offer came in from a rural community shelter 2 towns over. A quiet place, no gossip, no city glare. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe. "Maybe peace is better than love," she whispered to herself as she zipped the bag. Just then her phone buzzed. Incoming call. Mrs. Leona, Hope and Hearth. She hesitated, then answered. "Hi, Lina. Sorry to call so late. Listen, we've got a situation. The youth program for incoming boys was supposed to start tomorrow, but the volunteers backed out last minute." Lina blinked. You're still officially with us through the week, right? Could you stay just one more day to help get them settled?" Lina looked around her packed things, at the printed bus ticket by her pillow. "Yes," she said quietly. "One more day." Jaden was already there when she arrived the next morning, wearing worn jeans, a staff badge, and no hint of the billionaire world he came from. He didn't speak right away. She stood frozen at the threshold of the rec room where he was organizing donated shoes for the boys. "Why are you here?" she finally asked.
He looked up, surprised, but not shaken. "I heard the boys needed someone, so I showed up." "This isn't a game, Jaden." "I know," he said, stepping closer. "I'm not here for a second chance. I'm here because I still care about the work we did, and you." Lina crossed her arms. "Well, you'll be gone in a day, so don't bother acting like this is normal." He nodded, his voice low. "Then let me do one thing right before I go." The day passed slowly, thick with unsaid words. They worked side by side like strangers forced into old routines. Jaden taught a group of shy kids how to tie their shoelaces using broken laces and cardboard. Lina helped a boy calm down after a panic attack triggered by loud sounds, pressing her hand gently over his chest, whispering soft counts. 1, 2, 3. She noticed Jaden watching her, eyes filled with the kind of awe that hurt more than it healed. At lunch, a boy approached Lina with a scrap of paper. "He said to give you this," the boy said, nodding towards Jaden's corner. She unfolded the note. "Do you remember when you told me love wasn't loud? That sometimes it's just someone showing up when no one else does? I didn't show up when it counted, but I'm here now. If I have to prove that to you every day, I will." Her fingers tightened on the paper. Her heart betrayed her with a soft ache. Across the city, Jaden stood in his father's office, eyes hard, voice steady. "I'm stepping back from the company." His father looked up sharply. "You're what?" "You said reputation matters. Well, mine's already tarnished. Might as well go do something that matters." His father narrowed his eyes. "So this is about her. This is about me, about who I want to be when no one's looking, and she's the only person who ever made me like that version of myself." He walked out before his father could answer, because Jaden had made his choice. He was going to rebuild what he broke, if she'd let him. But Lina wasn't waiting. She had started applying to out-of-town social programs, places where no one knew her face, her story, or the lies others had painted her with. Maybe it was time to go. Maybe love wasn't enough when truth was so fragile. Have you ever walked away from someone, not because you stopped loving them, but because they stopped fighting for you? Share your story below. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone. Lina had packed the last of her things into a second-hand duffel bag. A job offer came in from a rural community shelter 2 towns over. A quiet place, no gossip, no city glare. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe. "Maybe peace is better than love," she whispered to herself as she zipped the bag. Just then her phone buzzed. Incoming call. Mrs. Leona, Hope and Hearth. She hesitated, then answered. "Hi, Lina. Sorry to call so late. Listen, we've got a situation. The youth program for incoming boys was supposed to start tomorrow, but the volunteers backed out last minute." Lina blinked. You're still officially with us through the week, right? Could you stay just one more day to help get them settled?" Lina looked around her packed things, at the printed bus ticket by her pillow. "Yes," she said quietly. "One more day." Jaden was already there when she arrived the next morning, wearing worn jeans, a staff badge, and no hint of the billionaire world he came from. He didn't speak right away. She stood frozen at the threshold of the rec room where he was organizing donated shoes for the boys. "Why are you here?" she finally asked. He looked up, surprised, but not shaken. "I heard the boys needed someone, so I showed up." "This isn't a game, Jaden." "I know," he said, stepping closer. "I'm not here for a second chance. I'm here because I still care about the work we did, and you." Lina crossed her arms. "Well, you'll be gone in a day, so don't bother acting like this is normal." He nodded, his voice low. "Then let me do one thing right before I go." The day passed slowly, thick with unsaid words. They worked side by side like strangers forced into old routines. Jaden taught a group of shy kids how to tie their shoelaces using broken laces and cardboard. Lina helped a boy calm down after a panic attack triggered by loud sounds, pressing her hand gently over his chest, whispering soft counts, 1, 2, 3. She noticed Jaden watching her, eyes filled with the kind of awe that hurt more than it healed. At lunch, a boy approached Lina with a scrap of paper. "He said to give you this," the boy said, nodding towards Jaden's corner. She unfolded the note. "Do you remember when you told me love wasn't loud? That sometimes it's just someone showing up when no one else does?"
They said nothing more. But when the sun finally rose, neither of them moved. Because for the first time since everything shattered, they weren't pretending. They were just there, together. The storm passed, but the air between Lina and Jaden remained heavy with something unspoken. They didn't talk about the night they shared the blanket, or the warmth of leaning on each other after so much silence. But something had shifted. They moved through the next day with quiet coordination, handing off responsibilities at the shelter, offering gentle smiles without making eye contact too long. Still, neither had truly said what needed to be said. Until Lina found the photo. She was sorting donations in the office supply closet, checking expiration dates on old snacks, when a worn manila folder fell out of a binder marked Emergency Contacts. The contents scattered to the floor. Lina bent to collect the papers and froze. There, mixed among inventory forms, was a photograph, creased, taped at the corner. Jaden, 5 or 6 years younger, smiling beside a woman in a hospital bed, her face pale, her hair thin, but her grip on his hand tight and strong. The name on the hospital wristband hit her like a blow to the ribs. Ruth C. Everhart. Everhart. Lina's breath caught. She knew that name. It was the same name on the donor plaque hanging above the shelter's main hallway, in loving memory of Ruth Everhart, the foundation that paid for this entire building, the woman who made this place possible. Lina stared at the photo again. The boy in the picture wasn't pretending to be poor. He wasn't playing a part. He looked broken and real. Later that evening, Jaden found her sitting alone by the playground benches after the children had gone to sleep. She didn't speak right away, just handed him the photo. He held it for a long time, his fingers trembling slightly at the edges. "She was my mother," he said finally. "The only person who ever really understood me. When she passed, I didn't know who I was anymore." Lina turned toward him, her voice quiet but sharp. "You could have told me." He whispered. "I wanted to. So many times. But the more I fell for you, the harder it became. I didn't want you to see me and think about her or the name on the building. I wanted you to see me, just Jaden. Just a man with no last name worth anything." Lina's jaw tightened. "That's what made it worse, because I did see you. I gave you all of me, and you looked me in the eye while pretending to be someone else." He nodded slowly, the guilt evident in every breath. I was the rich kid who never had to earn anything. Until I came here. Until I met you. For the first time in my life, I worked. Not just physically, emotionally. I had to show up. Stay. Feel. Lina looked away, tears pricking the corners of her eyes. And when it mattered most, you didn't stay. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out something small, and placed it gently in her palm. It was a silver necklace. At the center, a delicate charm shaped like an open hand, holding a tiny heart. I bought it the week we met, before I even knew your last name. You were handing out coats to kids in the snow, using your own gloves to wrap their hands. Lina stared at the necklace, the weight of it unfamiliar yet strangely comforting. "Why now?" she asked. He met her gaze. "Because I need you to know, you didn't fall in love with a lie. You fell in love with a man who got scared. And I'm still that man, just trying to be braver." She didn't say anything at first, but her fingers curled around the necklace, slowly, gently. And Jaden exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. The next day, the shelter director pulled Lina aside with surprising news. "We received a sizable anonymous donation this morning," she said, her tone stunned. It came with a note, for Lina, for every child she stayed for, even when it hurt. Lina stared at her, a strange numbness settling in. She didn't need to ask who it was from. And for the first time, she didn't feel angry. She felt seen. That evening, she and Jaden sat on the rooftop, watching the sky turn lavender behind the city skyline. He glanced at her carefully. "I understand if you never trust me again, but I'll never stop showing up for you, whether I'm welcome or not." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Instead, she unclasped the necklace from her pocket and fastened it gently around her neck. Jaden's lips parted, caught off guard. "I'm not saying I forgive you," she murmured. "I'm just saying I'm not running." And in that quiet moment, that fragile, flickering truce, a piece of both of them began to heal. They didn't call it forgiveness. They didn't need to label it. But from the moment Lina fastened that necklace around her neck, something shifted. Like a slow dawn pushing back a long night. Jaden didn't press for answers. He didn't chase her down with declarations. Instead, he returned to the shelter each day, quiet, present, patient. And Lina let him. 1 hour became 2. A walk after lunch became a shared chore in the food pantry. A guarded glance became a hesitant smile. One Tuesday morning, as rain danced lightly against the windows, the shelter held a storytelling circle for the children. It was a weekly tradition. Each child would share a memory, a dream, or even a made-up tale, as long as they spoke from the heart. This time, Jaden sat in the back, watching quietly, until a girl named Bella tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "You haven't shared yet, mister. It's your turn." The room fell still. Jaden looked at Lina, unsure. She nodded slowly. So he stood, cleared his throat, and began. Once upon a time, there was a boy who had everything, except a reason to wake up excited. He smiled a lot, but didn't feel much, until he walked into a place where kindness wasn't a slogan, it was a survival tool. And he met someone there, a girl, the kind of girl who stays after everyone else leaves, who laughs when life says she shouldn't, who believes that even broken things are worth mending. She made him feel like he had a heart again. And every day he's scared she'll stop seeing him. But he keeps showing up anyway, just in case she still does. When he sat down, the kids clapped, some too young to understand what he meant. But Lina understood. Her fingers trembled slightly in her lap, heart pounding so hard it echoed in her ears. She didn't cry, but she blinked too much. That night she found him in the supply room, counting canned goods. "You're not the only one with stories," she said, voice soft. He turned to face her, surprise giving way to warmth. Lina took a deep breath.
When I was 16, I ran away. I thought the world would meet me with open arms. It didn't. I lived in my car, ate whatever I could steal or beg. One night, I broke into this shelter, back when it had no funding, no heat, just dust and empty beds. Instead of calling the cops, the guard brought me soup, sat with me until sunrise. His name was Raymond, your father. He told me, "You don't have to be perfect to be worth saving." I never forgot that. I stayed, and I never stopped trying to become someone worthy of that soup. Jaden's eyes glistened. "You knew my dad?" She nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "He never judged, never asked for anything, but he changed everything." Jaden sat down slowly, the air between them thick with meaning. They were bound by more than present feelings. They were tangled in history, in survival, in kindness paid forward. Lina stepped closer. "For a long time, I thought I needed to prove I was lovable by giving everything away. Even my boundaries, even my pride. But you made me feel like I was enough, before you tried to buy me flowers or impress me." Jaden looked up at her. "And you made me want to earn something, for the first time in my life." There was a long silence. Not awkward, just full. Then Lina leaned in, resting her forehead against his. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But they stood there, breathing each other in. Two people who had finally stopped running. The next morning, Jaden offered her a ride in his old pickup to grab food supplies across town. On the drive back, they sang along, off-key to 90s music on the radio. They laughed until they couldn't breathe when Lina tried to rap a verse and failed miserably. When they stopped at a light, Jaden turned to her, smile fading to something gentler. "You're my favorite chapter," he said softly. And this time, Lina didn't look away. "You're the part I never thought I deserved." Later that night, she sat alone by the donation board, the one with his mother's name etched in gold. She traced the lettering with one finger. Ruth C. Everhart. She imagined her now, watching from somewhere beyond. Maybe proud of the man her son had become. Maybe grateful for the woman who taught him how to love. And for the first time in a long time, Lina didn't feel alone in the world. She felt chosen. There's always a moment when the truth threatens everything. And in this story, it came quietly, wrapped in good intentions and hidden behind an elegant invitation envelope. She found it on the desk one morning. The shelter had just opened, the sun barely warming the windows. Jaden was gone, off to pick up a shipment from the bakery. Curious, she flipped the envelope over. Her name was written on it, in sharp, familiar handwriting. Inside was a silver-gilded card, a wedding invitation. Except it wasn't theirs. It read, "You are cordially invited to the engagement celebration of Jaden Everhart and Camilla Langston at the Everhart Estate, Saturday, 7 p.m. Her hands went numb. Her breath caught halfway. The world tilted, and not in the romantic, dizzying kind of way. This was betrayal. Sharp, cold, quiet. Her knees buckled slightly as she dropped the card. It wasn't the existence of another woman. It was the fact that it had all been a lie. Jaden walked into the shelter with a box of pastries, smiling like the world was fine.
I lied by omission, and for that, I'm ashamed. I didn't tell you about Camilla because I was scared that if you saw the world I came from, you'd think I was just like it. That I didn't deserve the warmth you gave me. I've spent my life being wanted for what I could offer. But you made me want to be more. Not richer, not smarter, just better. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you remember the version of me who listened, who showed up, who meant every word. And if you ever need me again, I'll be wherever kindness lives." She held the letter close to her chest, unsure if her heart was breaking or healing. Maybe both. Sometimes love isn't lost in fire or fury. Sometimes it disappears in silence. And yet, it's in that silence, where echoes of longing live, that a choice must be made. Jaden stood outside the community shelter one evening, long after closing. He hadn't been inside since Lina left. He couldn't. Not without her. He stared at the old wooden sign above the door, the flickering porch light casting dancing shadows over the worn letters. It felt like a metaphor. Familiar, tired, but still holding on. Just like him. In his pocket was a tiny velvet box. It had no diamond, only a delicate ring made of brushed copper. Crafted by hand. By him. Back before his empire. Before Everhart Industries. Back when he was just a boy building little things that broke easily, but mattered more. Like his heart now. Across town, Lina sat alone in her apartment. Jaden's letter was folded neatly in her drawer, beside her mother's old cross. She hadn't answered him. Couldn't. Because this wasn't just about love. It was about trust. About whether the world she thought she saw in his eyes was real, or a reflection of what she wanted to believe. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Her heart skipped. She answered with a soft, uncertain hello. But it wasn't Jaden. It was Camilla, the fiancée on the card. The woman she'd never met, but whose name had burned in her chest for days. Camilla's voice was crisp, polite, too controlled. "Lina, I'm calling to apologize." Lina blinked, thrown off. "I assume Jaden didn't tell you everything, so allow me." And then, she did. Camilla revealed that her family had pressured Jaden into announcing an engagement to protect a merger. It was all politics. Empty champagne flutes. Jaden had ended things, but the Everhart name still held currency, and her father wouldn't let it go. I sent that card. Not Jaden. I wanted to scare you off, because I knew he loved you. Lina clutched the phone tighter. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I saw him yesterday. sitting in front of the community shelter like a man waiting for a miracle. And you looked like one when I saw you with him months ago. Camila paused. I wanted to win. But now, I just want him to be happy. Even if it isn't with me. The call ended. Lina sat frozen. 1,000 thoughts raced through her. Anger, relief, confusion. But somewhere beneath it all was hope. Jaden stood on the cliffs at Dunwood Hill the next morning. It was where he used to come as a teenager when his world felt too heavy. Where he carved dreams into stone and whispered secrets into wind. And where he waited now, watching the horizon, wondering if love, real love, could survive his mistakes. He didn't hear the footsteps at first, but he felt them. Felt her presence like warmth returning to frozen skin. He turned. Lina stood there. No makeup, hair windblown, hands in her coat pockets. He didn't speak. Didn't move. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, Camila called me. Jaden lowered his eyes. I figured. She told me the truth. He nodded. Lina took a step closer. I'm still angry. Still hurt. I know. But I realized something. He looked up, hope flickering. I don't want a perfect man, Jaden. I just want a man who fights to be better. Not for the world, but for the people he loves. Jaden swallowed hard.
One quiet evening, a girl with torn shoes and a shy voice asked Lina as she helped her find clean socks, "Are you really the one who married the billionaire in disguise?" Lina smiled. Yes. The girl looked amazed. How did you know it was him? Lina paused, then knelt down, touched the girl's hand. Because even when he had nothing, he still gave everything. Have you ever looked past someone's outside and seen their soul instead? If you were Lina, would you have said yes? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your heart. Thank you for joining this deeply emotional journey of faith, humility, love, and truth. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in real love. And remember, sometimes the richest hearts wear the poorest clothes. And sometimes the one who sees you when no one else does is the one who deserves your forever.